For this module going forward, actually next week because we won't have a in-class assignment, I'd like us to be doing all of our in-class assignments as PDF outputs and then placing them on our presentation sheet, just as we do for our larger lab modules. This will give me a little more consistency. It'll give you a chance to experiment with making your layouts a little more presentation quality. So just keep in mind, PDF output for all of the in-class assignments going forward. If you make a mistake, I'll just not grade it and send you a reminder to put it on a PDF sheet. A quick apology I want to make. This stumbled up a few people and it cost them some time. When we were doing creating the awning for our module, a few students were actually loading it in and then not seeing that component in the model and thinking that there was something wrong. It was actually causing them to go back and recreate the awning, which was really quite time consuming. And this is a really common error, and it's partially that I don't catch it in the video as I should, that when you import a library element into your project file, so you say you're working in an awning family, you say load into project, many times it won't actually show that you're ready to place it unless you go under component and go to place component. And what I'm saying by that is you can load the awning in and not get any indication that it's in the project file, and that causes a lot of confusion with students. So once again, I apologize for that. I'm going to try and I guess punch that up a little bit and in future years in the new video that I create for that. The assessment that we did last week, I was actually, I guess, pretty comfortable with the level of performance. I didn't want a bell-shaped curve, which would mean that, everyone got an average. I was looking for it to be kind of leaning towards the high side. The questions were really quite simple, so I was expecting 100% accuracy. And I think there was a little bit of fall off here, probably because of some of the ambiguities of the questions. So I'm hoping while I'm presenting this in class, we can have a little bit of discussion about it. Once again, this is just a reminder. I'll keep harping on this because I always see just tiny little errors creep in. The idea of looking at your architecture straight on, the eye elevation and target elevation being exactly the same dimensions, so that we don't get this little bit of, I guess, perspective distortion that's happening when we change our eye to camera angle, getting our architecture vertical lines to look crisp and clean. This was an inspiring piece of work that was submitted for our space frame this week, and I just put it up for an example of where you'll be going, what you can do with creativity with using space frames, but also creativity in expanding your development of your projects with, in this case, the buildup of a more sophisticated site context than we did in the actual lab. So I'm not showing it as a goal for this class, just the breadth of completeness that some students are able to do really very early on in the educational process. There were a bunch of questions about rendering from the examples that I showed in the video to what the actual results students were getting. And I wanted to just point out that when I constructed the videotapes that's really a throwback, the YouTube videos, I was using, I believe, a version of Revit 2020, and we really moved on at least 2 years from when those were produced with upgrades. And there have been some changes in the way that the quality of rendering that Revit does, and some things for good and some things for bad. I have created a couple of overviews of the changes. I do a comparison of Revit 2020 to 2021, which is when they made a remarkable change in the realistic rendering that they do. And I actually also have another video on the site for questions about rendering quality when we're actually doing ray tracing. So those are available to you. And I guess the thing that flagged me on this whole idea of discussion about Revit rendering is that the results that you get in 2022 on a screenshot will not look exactly like I did back in 2020 or in that version of 2020. And that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just the way the rendering engine performs. So once again, I hope we can have a little bit of discussion of that when we're in person in class. I also noticed, if we go back to this slide, um, I asked you to do a panel layout for the building. And I think the experimentation, or actually the development of that, wasn't quite as far along as I'd hoped it'd be. And I thought maybe I needed to spend a little time thinking through that. And I did. I built a little mock-up wall, placed some windows in it, um, made sure my modules were, I think it was 5 feet wide by a foot high. And I noticed some really, I guess, nice functionality with inside of the tile modeler. There is the ability to create variation in the appearance of the tiles, in the colors. Like, so here we're using a basis of a black or a dark gray, and our software is automatically creating this little bit of variation, which I thought was really quite nice. This is really typical of what would happen if these were actual clay tiles, or ceramic tiles that were going on the building. So once again, I hope we'll have a little bit of discussion on this. I think it's really important for you to feel the need to experiment with facades, to change these kind of ideas of coloration, size of tiles, the looks and textures of things. We'll spend a lot of our time, you know, figuring out what kind of surfaces we want to add to our architecture, and it'd be nice to know the full breadth of the power of the tool that we have to do that. There was a question in one of the lectures last week, actually, or not a question, but a kind of a discussion about the aggravation that every time we open up a new Revit file, we're faced with the idea of opening up a construction document as our first choice, and we really want to open architectural documents. And I thought, well, boy, I bet that's, something that can be fixed. And during class, one of the students actually did a little research on that, and found out that if you just click on the options command, you can actually go to that file locations, and then go ahead and actually just reorder the way those files show up. And so he has created a video that kind of describes that, and I put up these two graphics for us. What I think is really important or significant about this whole idea is that I love this statement: because none of us is as smart as all of us. That's a quote from a Marketplace PBS radio program they have. Um, but the idea that collectively we can solve problems quicker because we are we're a group of people looking for all kinds of solutions, and we can bring them together and really help to enhance the whole thing. So the whole experience of learning. So in this case, I may not have had the time to go ahead and look this up, but there's 70 students in the class, and one student took the initiative to actually go ahead and solve the problem for us. And imagine that multiplied, every week by the problems we come up with and searching out solutions. And you can think about that getting transferred to the workplace, thinking about us not working as individuals, but as a collective group.